So today we're doing a fashion shoot with one light. Now I do a lot of one light stuff, but a lot of people they want 2, 3, 4 lights. Everything is overdone and overkill. I want to use one light, and I'm actually using the ring light, Godox's ring light on a stand. I've never done this before. This is my first time using this on a stand. And I actually set up the umbrella arm inside of here because I figured, oh, I'll be throwing an umbrella on this for sure. After I took a couple shots, I fell in love with the look. And I'll move this light around so you get the different idea of how this looks and what it looks like in the photos. But I love this setup. It's so easy, lightweight. Obviously, the AD200Pro Mark II is on the stand. Yes, this ring light will work with this, not a problem. I know that the cord, the extension head cord, it plugs into the AD200Pro Mark II, but you can't put the new heads on it. You have to use older heads or the round head if you're using an extension head. But this one, it just plugs right in, it works flawlessly. I'm using the X3 remote on the Hasselblad X1D II 50C. I'm using this new 75mm lens. I've done many shoots with this so far, and I can say I absolutely positively love this. This is a 3.4 lens. I get great fall off. It's a gorgeous rendering lens. I have not found any flaws with the lens yet, honestly. It's not a lightning fast camera and autofocus system. It is faster. The 75 is faster on the X1D Mark II 50C, but it's still not a lightning fast. And I don't want that because the way I shoot with this camera in studio for the fashion type shoots, I'm not rapid firing or spraying and praying. That's not how I do it. I shoot, they move into a pose, I shoot again. That's the way I like it. I like that relaxed, and they're not pressured to be putting on 70 poses in 3.5 minutes. They can just slide into the pose and they don't get burnt out quickly during a shoot. Remember that. I know a lot of people like just spray and pray and make the model keep moving, but it burns them out quite a bit, or they get tired a lot faster. With this, it's just a relaxed shoot and they enjoy it a lot more. That's just my opinion and my experience with doing it that way. Anyway, I'll stop talking. Let's get into the shoot and see how this thing does.
Well, honestly, this is something I never thought I'd be doing, using this light off camera, but I had to. And I'm just doing a quick gray card. I say this in every video, do gray cards. It works so well. Except for, the Hasselblad, and I think the Nikon does this as well. You take a picture of the gray card, and then when you click the gray card option in your white balance, it actually has you pull up the image and then put the circle over the gray area of the card. And it sets the white balance in camera, which is really nice. So I don't have to go back in Lightroom and do a click white balance because it's already set. And it works very, very well. Anyway, I always say that. But just notice that shadow on the left. This is the only thing I don't like about this light is the shadow. It gives both a softer look and a very hard edge at the same time, which is distracting. So the first thing I had to do with this shoot was drop that shadow as much as possible out of the frame. Now it's still in the frame a little bit, but since there's not a lot of it, it's not distracting. Now I'm going to move this light around through this whole shoot so you can get different looks with it, so you can see what it can do in different settings. Even with a side light like this, it gives me that really nice light on her skin, on her clothing. It gives me that little bit of an edge on, as far as a hard light is concerned, but it's still somewhat of a softer hard light. So it's that nice transition point between, a smaller softbox and a straight reflector. So if you want to ease into a little bit harder light, this is a nice way to do it. The other positive part of this is that is really lightweight, the Ring Flash itself. The AD200 is off on the stand. It's separated from that. You just have the cable going up, but that's really lightweight. And honestly, this stand is definitely overkill for this, and especially the boom arm. Now, I like using a boom arm so I can do things like this where I'm shooting underneath a light, and having that directly on her. That's a positive side of using a boom arm with it, but I didn't need this big of a stand. I could have used a much smaller stand with a much smaller, lighter weight boom arm. I would have got the same, and I think it would have been easier actually, because it's such a small light. I just didn't, the stand was more cumbersome than the light itself. Now, moving this thing around and having fun with this and getting the different looks and the different angles that I'm using. That was the most fun part of this. And, for something like this, when I'm using full length, I'm going to get lower. Number one, I want to lengthen her legs. Plus, I want to maneuver that shadow so the distracting parts of the shadow aren't as distracting in the photo. So it seems like the skinnier parts, like the arms, give that distracting look, that hard and soft light shadow together. So I just maneuvered it in a way where it wouldn't be as distracting. Now that last shot, it wasn't bad at all, but I still wanted to pull the light on the side so I wouldn't have to worry about it as much. And I would still get those full length, but you can see the shadow is just a little bit softer now and a little less distracting when I move the light to the side. Now, ease of use, it really is easier to use. A lot of people ask me about that hard light because I always use hard light, especially for shots like this where it's a very distinct shadow. And I like that look because it gives depth to the image. With this one, you just have to maneuver a little bit more so the shadow isn't as prominent a part of the image. But this is a nice transition point for those of you who don't want that hard light that I use all the time. But want to try just a little bit harder light. This makes it a little bit softer because of that ring pattern that's coming out, but it still gives you that harder light look, but not as hard as something that would make people not want to use it, if that makes sense. Now you'll notice I shoot up on her a lot because I want to elongate her legs and her torso and everything. And it works for her. It's a great look for her. So I'll be shooting lower, for a lot of her images and shooting up just a little bit. Now she's tall to start. I mean, on average, she's much taller than most people I shoot. So I want to take advantage of that and make her, look even taller and bring out her stature in the images, because I think it's just a great look for her. When I'm shooting down on her just a little bit, it's not as flattering. Take advantage of what you have and exploit it, if that makes sense. I'm using that Hasselblad 75, by the way, and a lot of people have been asking about it because I have a lot of Hasselblad shooters in this channel, and I'll tell you what, that's one to look at. The 3.4. Now, trust me, the background blur is beautiful. When you use it at 3.4, it is stunning. Obviously it's not as shallow as like a 1.4 on a full frame sensor. And remember, a lot of people talk about that, the advantages of medium format having a blurrier background. It's not, honestly, if you're doing it the same focal length, it's not more blurry than a standard full frame camera. It's that the focal length is a crop factor of 0.79, so you're able to move in closer for the same length lens. So when you move in closer with any lens, the background becomes blurrier. With this is 75. It equals a 59. If I was using a 75 on a full frame camera and this at a 59, I'm just moving in closer. So it's going to be the same blur in the way that's concerned. But if you put a 75 against a 75, I have to move in closer with the Hasselblad with the 0.79 crop factor. So obviously, because I'm moving in closer, the background's going to be blurrier. I just want to put that out there because it's not like a direct cause of the size of the sensor. It's a direct cause of your distance to the subject. And that goes with crop sensor as well. It works in the opposite effect. Anyway, getting back to the shoot. I do love this look. I love the light. I love what I could do with it. And if you have one and haven't used it off camera without an umbrella or any other kind of modifier, I definitely think you should try it because it is a beautiful look on the person themselves, on your subject. Again, I'm not a fan of the shadow of this thing, but it doesn't bother me enough to say I can't have it in frame at all or not use it because of it, because I do love the light the way it is. Now, I'm going to be using this a lot. There's no question about that, but I'm going to be using it with a smaller stand. And if I do use it on a smaller stand, a smaller boom arm as well, just to make it more maneuverable rather than this giant stand. Yeah, this one's on wheels and all that kind of stuff, but it's still a big stand and a big boom arm, which I didn't need for this shoot. And that excites me because, I like smaller, nimbler setups. I would definitely use this on location. No questions asked, because it has a hole in the center. It's less likely to be taken down by the wind. Obviously you have the reflector part, which can catch wind, but it's less likely to fall over. And even if it does, you have to remember my AD200 is going to be on stand, so it's not going to get damaged. The worst case scenario is I'm going to damage the head, which is a lot less expensive to replace than the AD200 itself. Which, everybody has toasted one of those during a fall, I'm sure. If you haven't, it's coming if you don't use handbags, so, take care of that light. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this shoot. For me, this was a blast and a very big eye-opener. I couldn't believe how well this reflector did in this shooting scenario. Now, I have a video coming up where I tried to use an umbrella on it, and yeah, not so much. Oh, by the way, this is that little pocket fan. You guys see me use this for, quite some time, over a year now. When I tell you I like a product, I actually do, and I use this a lot in shoots. I'm going to leave the link for this thing because it is fantastic. Sometimes it's hard to aim on her because it's such a small stream of light or wind, but it works great with the hair, blowing the hair and so forth, and it fits in your pockets, rechargeable, and I can hold this and shoot at the same time, and it just does a great job. So I highly recommend this one, and I've tried a ton of these things. This is the one I always go back to. Now, I'm sure there's other ones in the market that'll do, the same kind of job, but this is the only one I've tried, and, I use it all the time. And it's been over a year, and it's been working flawlessly. I've never had any issues with it whatsoever. So I definitely want to recommend this if you like that windblown look and don't want a giant fan or something like that, especially on location. Who's going to take a fan and, plug it in somewhere? This thing will fit in your pocket and do the job, So, yeah, I'm going to leave the link for that because I highly recommend this. And again, I've been using it for over a year now. It's just been fantastic. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the shoot. If you have any questions, leave them below. And again, if you have this ring light, try it off stand without an umbrella or anything. Just, use it as it is. I think you're going to be really impressed with the output this thing does give you. And other than the shadows, obviously, you'll notice if you do get a shadow in one of your images, you're going to notice the odd, distracting look of it. It's just a strange shadow. I'm sure it's because of the silver ring part of it. It almost wants me to, say, I don't know if they have one, but if they have a white version of this, I actually would consider getting the white reflector part of this to try it. But I love the silver so much, I'll probably stick with that. Thanks for watching as always.